All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of D&D 5th edition to help you get the most out of the choices that you make. So, today, my last video was all about wizards, and we found out that they have a lot of subclasses. And we're only covering the ones in the player's handbook. There are many more. But it's the final class I need to cover in order to have all the classes covered in D&D Deep Dive. Yeah, let's just dive back into it. So just to remind everyone, for 5th edition, class design is based around the idea that each class should be very different and unique. And the things that make them unique should show up in the class in the first or second level. And for the wizard, the unique things about it are spellcasting. For first of all, wizards are master spellcasters, and part of that is their spell book. They're the only class in the entire game that can learn new spells by copying them and putting them into their spell book. Every other class only learns new spells when they level up. They also have Arcane Recovery, which allows them to, during a short rest, actually recover a few spell slots so they can cast more spells throughout the day than most other full caster classes. And then they have their school that they focus in. They will have a particular school of magic that they focus in, and because of that, they're able to learn spells from that school easier than other schools. And in general, each school of magic will give them additional benefits to let them cast the spells differently or give them abilities that work into the tangent with their chosen school of spells. So last time we went through conjuration and abjuration, and now we're going right into, in my personal opinion, one of the most overlooked schools, because it just doesn't seem that useful, which is the school of divination. Divination magic is kind of interesting in 5th edition. As they describe it in the description, as a diviner, you strive to part the veils of space and time and consciousness so that you can see clearly. You work to master spells of discernment, remote viewing, supernatural knowledge, and foresight. If you've seen my the video I did on the psionics subclasses, I mentioned one of the issues that they had with psionics in general in 5th edition was the fact that so much of what used to be psionic abilities is already replicated in magic in general. That it made it just kind of feel weird to have this character who's psionic, who has these psychic abilities, which are the same abilities that other people already have. So what's the point? Well, divination is one of the schools of spells that replicates a lot of the psychic abilities or the psionic abilities that used to be psionic specific. So psionics have had the ability to do a little bit of like remote viewing, Things like detect thoughts is a divination spell, and that was something that psionics could do by just reading people's minds, or clairvoyance is another one where you kind of could create the sensor and you can remote view, or scrying is another version of that. And even some stuff like telepathic bond is another spell that just gives you some psychic abilities. Though I will admit there's a few things in the enchantment and even the evocation school that I think fit a little better in divination, but whatever. Again, the entire point of divination is you kind of peer into the future, or you peer inside someone's mind. It's all about this ability to see beyond the physical realm. So just like every other school, right? It's the second level when you choose it. You the gold and the time you have to spend to copy divination spells into your spell book is halved. Again, every single school is like this, so I'll just mention this one's called Divination Savant, but it's always called School Savant. So, but the interesting thing about divination comes right at level 2 with this next thing called Portent. Starting at the second level, when you choose this school, glimpses of the future begin to press in on your awareness. When you finish a long rest, roll 2 d20s and record the numbers rolled. You can replace any attack roll, saving throw, or ability check made by you or a creature that you can see with one of these foretelling rolls. You must choose to do so before the roll, and you can replace a roll in this way only once per turn. Each roll can only be used once, and if you finish a long rest, any unused rolls just disappear, and you get to 2 new rolls. So this is massively cool. And I know it doesn't sound like that big a deal, because it's only 2 rolls, and you don't get to pick the number. You have to roll it and then replace it. But to be perfectly honest, there's so much you can do when you know the roll before it's rolled. Let's put it this way: you're in. You're rolling at the beginning of the day, and you roll like a 4 and a 13. Neither of those are, really remarkable. A 4 is not a great roll, and a 13 is not a phenomenal roll. But they're both in a very specific category of either, above 11 or below 10. So, throughout the day, things are happening, and eventually you get into combat, and Big Baddie is just swinging at one of your allies and is about to just to take them down. He's getting ready to make the attack that's going to end the player's life, and you just go, oh, he rolled a 4 on that. And he misses on the attack that he needed to make to be able to kill this player. And now your party has extra time to be able to heal them. On the flip side, you have an attack that needs to hit. By the time you've gotten to this point in the encounter, you know what you need to roll in order to make it hit. You've hit the bad guys and enough to know what their armor class is. And it comes to that one roll that you need to make, and the guy is about to roll, and you go, no, you got a 13 on that. Again, it's something that's incredibly useful, and depending on what you roll in the beginning of the day, it can just literally the sky's the limit as far as when you use these things to replace. To give you a good example, I have a buddy of mine that used to run games for the convention that I ran, and he used to bring up a bunch of DMs with him, and we would do the convention circuit, and every so often, not at any of the conventions I ran because I vetted all my DMs, but every so often at other conventions, you'd have to deal with a DM that was on a power trip, or he's just a really mean and a nasty DM. He would pull out what we called the DM killer. It was a divination wizard with the lucky feat. It was a halfling. He was the halfling with the lucky feat and was the divination. So, in any day of travel, it could replace 5 different rolls, 2 for divination and then 3 for lucky, and all nat ones that it rolled, it got to re-roll from being a halfling. It was so much fun because combining lucky with divination really turns you into a very powerful kind of controller, I guess is the best thing. You don't get to just manipulate the field. You get to manipulate fates and luck, and it's just massively fun. So yes, Portent is in my opinion one of the best school of abilities or subclass abilities you get for wizards, because there's just so much you can do with it. At the 6th level, you get Expert Divination, which is when you cast a divination spell 2nd level or higher using a spell slot, you regain 1 expended spell slot. The slot you regain must be of a lower level than the spell you cast and can't be higher than 5th level. So remember how we talked about arcane recovery, meaning that wizards could just cast more spells in general? Divination wizards can cast even more spells. The thing with divination spells is most of them do not really do the damage. There's Mind Spike from Xanathar's that actually does the damage, and that's it. Everything else is a buff or communication or detection or something like that. So for a divination wizard, a lot of times you're not able to cast you have to kind of choose between doing damage, which is what wizards are known for, or using a divination spell, which tend to have very specific instances where they're useful. With Expert Divination, this chair is just squeaking and it's annoying the heck out of me. It's a great chair, don't get me wrong, but it annoys me. Sorry about that. With Expert Divination, now you don't really have to make that choice. You're basically able to trade a higher level spell slot for a lower level spell slot, which is a big deal. Now, one thing you do have to focus on is you regain 1 expended spell slot. You don't make new spell slots. So in order for you to use Expert Divination, you have to have a spell slot you used already that you can regain. So that's the only kind of limiting factor to it, but it still means that the divination wizards can cast loads of spells simply because basically their divination spells don't technically count when they cast them. As long as they're 2nd level or higher, they just kind of reduce one of your higher level spell slots to a spell slot that's a little lower. So again, really useful, makes divination wizards very useful in a lot of different situations. 10th level, you get the 3rd eye, which again is kind of a psychic reference. And I think there was actually an ability in the Psionicist, or whatever they could called it when they tried to release the Psionic class, that just was not great. I think they had an ability called the 3rd eye, because it's so heavily referenced in kind of psychic stuff. So anyway, starting at the 10th level, you can use your action to increase your powers of perception. When you do so, choose one of the following benefits, which lasts until you're incapacitated or you take a short or long rest. You can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. So you burn an action and you get one of these abilities. You can either get Dark Vision, where you get Dark Vision out to a range of 60 feet. Ether Sight, which lets you see into the ethereal plane within 60 feet of you. Greater Comprehension, which is read any language. And See Invisibility, which is see any invisible creatures within 10 feet of you that are within the line of sight. So, again, this is very much, just like everything else in the Divination School, this is very much kind of a preparation type thing. This is not something you're generally going to use in the middle of battle, other than See Invisibility can be massively useful, and so can See into the ethereal plane, because of spells like we talked about before, things like Blink, which basically lets you kind of jump into the ethereal plane. This would allow you to see in the ethereal plane, be able to work around the fact that you can be ambushed from the ethereal plane. It doesn't give you the ability to interact with it, but you can at least see it. Dark Vision's always is useful, and Greater Comprehension can be amazing. Especially, which happens in my campaigns every so often. They will come across a dead language or something like that in old ruins, and no one can read it because no one actually speaks the language it's written in. You see this happen in Faerun every so often too, where you get like the Netherese ruins and nobody speaks the Netherese. The whole civilization killed itself in a rather spectacular fashion. So stuff like that. But a lot of times this is going to be something you do outside of combat. The nice thing about it is stuff like this just lasts until you take a short or long rest. And then you get it back on a short or long rest as well. So this is something that the third eye is something that you can do at the beginning of your day, especially if you're like a human or any of the other races that don't have the dark vision, and you're going to be going through the darkness, like the dungeon delving. Starting off the day by using your third eye to give you the dark vision can be massively useful. Because going through a dungeon with a torch or a light spell can cause monsters to know that you're coming and cause other issues as well. Things like if you're traveling with the dark elves, they get they have issues in bright light. Or if you're traveling with a shadow monk, which I play, most of their abilities require dim light or darkness. So yeah. Useful. I don't think quite as useful as some of the other things, but again, you have Portent and Expert Divination in this, so I don't mind the 10th level ability being a little lesser. And then for 14th level, you get Greater Portent, which lets you roll 3 d20s rather than to 2 in the morning, just giving you more abilities to screw with everything. Like I said, the School of Divination is just a really fun, interesting way to play a wizard. Divination wizards play differently than literally every other wizard because they basically get free divination spells to a point, and they can replace rolls. They are a great support style wizard and get to do lots of awesome, amazing, wonderful things. So don't count them out just because they're not built to rain down hellfire. That's another school. Next school we're going to talk about is the School of Enchantment. Enchantment spells are fun, but plain and simple. Description they give. As a member of the School of Enchantment, you have honed your ability to magically entrance and beguile other people and monsters. Basically, enchantment spells are all about messing with people's minds in a bunch of different ways. In general, I don't think that they're. That's what it is. Enchantment spells, a lot of them involve the charmed effect. So this entire school, or not all of it, but a fair amount of this is a school can be kind of nullified to creatures that are immune to charm. There's not a ton of them. Everything else that they do is status effects and psychic damage. Psychic damage is really nice because, again, very few creatures have resistance to psychic damage, so you generally can cut through resistances but pretty easily. And putting paralysis is another one that's really common for enchantment spells. The things like hold person, charm monster, dominate person, hold monster. The things like that are all enchantment spells. They are massively useful. So getting into the actual school itself, Enchantment Savant, we know what that is. Second level, you get Hypnotic Gaze. As an action, choose one creature that you can see within 5 feet of you. You got to be really good close. If the target can see or hear you, it must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw against your Wizard's spell save DCC, or be charmed by you until the end of your next turn. The charmed creature's speed drops to 0, and the creature is incapacitated and visibly dazed. This is a big deal, guys. The ability to incapacitate a creature is really useful. I mention this all the time because a lot of people don't think about it and get really afraid when they're fighting enemy spellcasters, because a firestorm or even just high level fireballs and the lightning bolts can decimate your party. And a lot of the more powerful spells require concentration. Banishment is the one that annoys me the most as a DM, because it literally just removes enemies from combat, and can turn a really challenging and interesting encounter into a cakewalk. But it's a concentration spell. There's a lot of different ways to get them to break concentration, but the easiest is to incapacitate them. There's no roll that they get to make, nothing. If they're incapacitated, they lose concentration instantly, and the spell is effectively wasted. So, being able to use an action to incapacitate someone is really useful. Now, it only works until the end of your next turn. However, on subsequent turns, you can use your action to maintain this effect, extending its duration to the end of your next turn. However, the effects end if you move more than 5 feet away from the creature, if the creature can neither see nor hear you, or if the creature takes damage. So there's an important word that I think a lot of people will gloss over. It's the word nor. If it was just or, that would mean if they either couldn't see you or they couldn't hear you, it would drop it. Meaning the easiest way to get rid of Hypnotic Gaze would be to cast Darkness for a second, or put a bag over their head. However, the creature would need to neither see nor hear you. It needs both of those to lose it, or if it takes the damage. Now, once the effect ends, or if the creature succeeds on its initial saving throw against this effect, you can't use this feature on that creature again until you finish a long rest. So that's another thing that's really interesting on this. It's a one and done kind of thing on any creature, but as long as it's a different creature, there's no limit to how many times you can use this. So that is a pretty big thing. Now, again, you have to use your action to do this, and you have to keep burning your action if you want to keep it. which can cause issues. You're basically rooted to the spot unless you grapple them and move them with you, which most wizards aren't going to have a super high strength score for grappling. But you're kind of rooted to the spot. You're basically a target. But if you can pull this off on the right character, this is game changing. You sit there hypnotizing this person until your party cleans up the trash, and then you go, "Hey, you're awake." Here's death. So it can be extremely useful, but pick your battles. Instinctive Charm is what you get at level 6. When you can see a creature within 30 feet of you makes an attack roll against you, you can use your reaction to divert the attack, provided that another creature is within the attack's range. The attacker makes a Wisdom save against your spell save. On a fail save, the attacker must target the creature that is closest to it, not including you or its self. If multiple creatures are closest, the attacker chooses which one to target. And on a successful save, you can't use this feature again on the attacker until you finish a long rest. And you must use this feature before knowing whether the attack hits or misses. Creatures that can't be charmed are immune to this effect. Okay, this is another really, really big one. Because again, you are only limited by the fact that if somebody succeeds on their save, you can't use it on that particular creature again until you finish a long rest. However, this can be massively useful. And then the nice thing about this is that the attacker must target the creature that is closest to it, not that's next to it. So this is particularly useful for ranged attackers, because generally they will have your tanks, your meat shields in front of them. The ranged attacker will be behind them. With this, you basically can cause them to, instead of attacking you, you can shift the attack to the creature that's closest to it, which a lot of times is going to be their ally. Now again, because they get to choose when there's multiple creatures, make sure you don't do this when your ally is close as well, because then you're just hitting them. But that might be what they want. Again, if they're a barbarian and they can take the damage, or they're, another spellcaster with like absorb elements and you don't have it, there's a lot of different reasons why you might want to redirect an attack to your ally. But again, this gives you something to use your reaction for, which again just adds to the action economy for your team. And you don't have a limitation, but beyond once you fail on a person, you can't use it on that person again. But it still means there's tons of other people you can use it on, as long as there's other bad guys on the battlefield. So again, so this is super useful, really interesting to redirect it to attacks and stuff like that. Like, I love stuff like that. 10th level, you get what's called split enchantment, which is when you cast an enchantment spell of first level or higher that targets only one creature, you can have it target a second creature. This can be massively useful. I mean, there's always, little things like Tasha's Hideous Laughter or something like that. But when you get to higher levels with things like Dominate Person, where you literally take over a humanoid and you get to direct their attacks and that, well, now you can do 2. Or other things like power word pain, which basically means power word pain limits their speed to 10 feet, no matter what kind of speed they have. So flying, climbing, swimming, they only have to 10 feet. They have disadvantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving the throws other than con saves. And if they try to cast a spell, it has to first succeed on a con save, or the casting fails and the spell is wasted. Yeah, so stuff like that you can now double becomes super useful. And again, especially with the when you're thinking about the action economy, taking one enemy from their team and making them an ally, even if it's only for a minute with the dominate person, can be useful. Taking two is game changing, because at that point you are massively unbalancing the scales. So really cool. And then at 14th level, you get what's called Alter Memories. Not to be confused with Modify Memory, which is an actual enchantment spell that is rife for abuse. But at 14th level, you gain the ability to make a creature unaware of your magical influence on it. When you cast an enchantment spell to charm one or more creatures, you can alter one creature's understanding so it remains unaware of being charmed. Additionally, once before this spell expires, you can use your action to try to make the chosen creature forget some of the time it's spent charmed. The creature must succeed on an intelligence save against your spell save DC, or lose a number of hours of its memory equal to 1 plus your charisma modifier. You can make the creature forget less time, and the amount of time can't exceed the duration of your enchantment spell. So, one of the downsides of most charm spells is they will have a little thing at the end that says, well, once the spell is over, this target will know that they've been charmed. In some of them, actually, say things like, which one is it? I think it's Friends. Yeah, it says specifically, when this spell ends, the creature realizes that you used magic to influence its mood and becomes hostile toward you. Meaning the Friends cantrip can be really useful because it gives you an advantage on all charisma checks directed at the creature. So it can be a really useful cantrip. However, it lasts for a minute. As soon as the minute is over, not only do they know that you've messed with their mind, they are hostile towards you. However, with Alter Memories, not only can you prevent that from happening with any of the charm or suggestion spells, which can be massively useful, you can actually make them forget every thing that happened while they were charmed, effectively giving yourself a flashy thingy from Men in Black or the Neuralizer. Yeah, you effectively can rewrite whatever that is, and they just kind of have to believe you. Now, there are spells that allow you to do that a little bit more effectively, but this is a really great way to actually get a lot more use out of your charm spells, because so often, if you're going to be using your charm spells, it really needs to be against someone you're never going to see again, because they simply won't trust you after being charmed. With this, they can. If you have a situation where you need someone to do a certain thing, and you have to charm them to get them to do that, using Alter Memories can ensure that you don't permanently destroy whatever relationship you had with them. It's super cool and useful. So that's Enchantment. Now we get to everyone's favorite school. If you're choosing a wizard, you're probably going to choose the School of Evocation. It's the most common chosen class, specifically because Evocation spells do damage. Like, Evocation spells are just designed to do damage. Most spells that you know, Fireball, Lightning Bolt, Magic Missile, I mean, name it. Melf's Meteors, Scorching Arrow, Melf's Acid Arrow, Fire Shield, Ice Storm, Vitriolic Sphere, Wall of Fire, Bigby's Head. All of those are evocation spells. They do damage. When people think of wizards, they think of magical cannons, and the School of Evocation makes you a magical cannon, especially when you start getting into the abilities they have. First thing they get, Evocation Savant. We know what that means. So the second one is Sculpt spells. This is by far the most annoying thing for DMs, because one of the limiting factors of wizards is a lot of their spells. Like I use Fireball often as an example because Fireball is used constantly. It's at the third level spell. It's a game changing spell because it does a lot of damage. Fireball does 8d6 fire damage on everyone within a 20-foot radius sphere. So that's a lot. In most combats, that is most of the party. Like you can fit your entire party and the entirety of the enemy in that sphere. Because of that, and these spells don't discriminate. Evocation spells hit whoever is in the area, if they're area spells. So the limiting factor is the fact that you have to kind of move and choose where you could cast the spell in order to avoid hitting your own party members. Not with an evoker, because they get sculpt spells. Beginning at the second level, you can create pockets of relative safety within the effects of your evocation spells. When you cast an evocation spell that affects other creatures that you can see, you can choose a number of them equal to 1 plus the spell's level. The chosen creatures automatically succeed on their saving throws against this spell, and they take no damage if they would normally take half damage on a successful save. Sculpt spells means you can cast a fireball directly in your party, and none of them take damage. Now, the limiting factor is you can only sculpt it around 1 plus the spell's level. So a third level for fireball, you can only sculpt it around for 4 people. But you're not going to cast it on yourself, because you're not dumb. And most adventuring parties are 4 or 5 people. So by the time you're casting the third level spells, which is where they really start getting where you would want to sculpt them, you have enough that you never need to worry about hitting your party members. And when you get to the high levels, you're never hitting your party members. You're never hitting innocent bystanders. Heck, you can decide not to hit the mailbox on the side of the street just because you want to. It's massively useful. It means you can cast more powerful spells. You don't have to worry about hitting your allies. It's just useful. And it's designed to just let you rain damage down. Along with the theme, 6th level you get Potent Cantrip, which is your damaging cantrips can affect creatures that avoid the brunt of the effect. When a creature succeeds on a saving throw against your cantrip, the creature takes half the cantrip's damage, if any, but suffers no additional effect from the cantrip. So the one kind of limiting factor of cantrips compared to any other spells, most spells, if the enemy makes a saving throw, they take half the damage. So it's very rare for you to cast a spell and get nothing from it. You're always going to get something. It just may not be as powerful as you want. Cantrips, though, if you make this a save, you don't take damage. That's just how it works. With this, they're still going to take half damage, just like a higher level spell. Now, the other thing that's nice about this is not evocation cantrips. This is any damaging cantrips. So it doesn't matter where you learn them, how you learn them. It's just any cantrips that do damage that requires saving throws. As far as an example, if I remember correctly, things like seriously, I know there's one here. Is it the Thunderclack? That's it's a con save. So Thunderclack, which is an elemental evil one, it's basically you could create a burst around you, and anyone in the nearby makes a con save. That would now do half damage instead of nothing. So this is stuff like that. Going up to 10th level, you get Empowered Evocation, which is you can add your intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll of any wizard evocation spell you could cast. Again, the whole theme of this school is I kill things with magic. This just lets you add extra damage. For most of your leveled spells, it's really not that big a deal, because at most you're adding +5 to the damage, even for a level 3 fireball. That's 8 d6 damage. 5 is one of those 8 d6. It's not going to be a big deal. However, when you factor in the cantrips, that can be a pretty big factor, and effectively makes you kind of like a ranged fighter, where they get to make attacks and then add their ability modifier to it. And it is a little limited to 1 damage roll for this spell. So things like Scorching Ray, you wouldn't be able to add it 3 times because you cast multiple rays. But it's still pretty useful, even if you're... and I actually can't remember. I'm going to look before I say the wrong thing. Yeah, Magic Missile. You can use Magic Missile and effectively double the damage for a single missile, which could be enough to kill off a creature, so you can use your other missiles on other targets. So again, mostly you're going to be using that on your or it's going to be most influential on your cantrips, but it's extra damage. I mean, come on, how can you not like that? And then for 14th level, you get what's called Over Channel. When you cast a wizard spell of 1st through 5th, that level that deals damage, you can deal maximum damage with that spell. The first time you do so, you suffer no adverse effect. If you use this feature again before finishing a long rest, you take 2d12 necrotic damage for each level of this spell immediately after you cast it. Each time you use this feature again before finishing a long rest, the necrotic damage per spell level increases by 1d12. The damage ignores resistances and immunity. So that's a lot. To break that down, once per day without any issues, you get to maximize this spell damage for any spell level 1 through level 5. And that concludes casting a spell at a higher level. So again, I use Fireball because it's really common, and it's a game changer. A level 3 Fireball, you can, instead of rolling dice, you can just make it do for 48 damage. That's pretty big. For the 3rd level spell, in general, using averages in that, you're generally going to be doing right around like 25 to 30 damage with a Fireball. And then people that save are going to take half of that. With this, you just max it out to 48 and do damage. However, that's not the only spell. Again, this goes all the way up to 5th level. So you could do something like another really common spell that's super powerful, super effective, and as an evoker, you can bend it around, or you can sculpt it around your friends, is Cone of Cold. Cone of Cold does 8 d8 cold damage on a failed save in a 60-foot cone. If you're unaware with how that works, that means the cone, the measurement from you, which is at the tip of the cone, to the end of the cone, the widest part of it, is 60 feet, and the two ends of the widest part are 60 feet wide. That is a massive area that you can hit. And you can just decide that, oh, it's 64 damage. No rolling, no bad rolls. It's 64 damage. None of my friends are going to take that damage. And you're all going to be destroyed. Now, because this could become incredibly overpowered, if you use it a second time before getting a long rest, you take a lot of damage. That fifth level Cone of Cold spell, the first time you use this, technically this is the second time you use it. The first time you take damage, that's 10d to 12 necrotic damage that you take. That can kill you. That can take you from full hit points to nothing at 14th level, because that's if you were rolled max on that, it's 120 damage, and every time you do that afterwards, it increases 1d to 12 per spell level. So the next time you would do it after that, it would be 15 to D12. And D12s are nasty to roll. You don't get to roll them much in D&D because effectively it's basically just great axes that you use them and like one or two spells. But when you roll them, like they're hefty little dice. So yeah, it does give you that kind of choice of, well, do I want to risk going down, or if you're really low on hit points, do I want to risk this character dying outright to get max damage and possibly wipe out half the attacking force, or the really big baddie, whatever you need. And you kind of get to make that choice. And again, as far as design goes in my book, good design provides you with choices where there isn't an obvious right answer. You actually have to make the choice and weigh the consequences. And I think Overchannel, even when you start taking damage from it, gives you choices as opposed to, well, you always do this because it's always the best choice. So let's keep going. We only got the 3 left, I believe. Yep. So now we are to the School of Illusion. Illusion is the last part of some of the kind of psychic spells. There's not a ton, but things like project image or a lot of this is stuff like that. The illusions as spells kind of mimic some of the stuff that psionics could do to a point. Illusions as spells have a few more that actually do damage. Again, they are psychic damage. Any of the ones that actually do damage. And they actually have one of my favorites as spells. It's in Xanathar's guide. It's called Shadow Blade, which is basically you create a sword out of the darkness, and then you can use it for a minute. And every time you hit with it, it does 2d8 psychic damage. And if you cast it at higher levels, like if you cast it to 7th level or higher, it does 5 d8 damage per hit. So for my Blade Singer, which is a subclass of a wizard we're not going through today because it's in a different book, they are, a fighting wizard. They're designed to get close. They can wear armor. Shadowblade can be super effective. Just come in and like, boom, boom, just cut people up with your shadow lightsaber thing. Like, it's super cool and fun. Anyway, so that's an illusions as a spell. A lot of other illusion spells are 100% designed to trick the enemy. Create illusory creatures to make them think you have more allies than you want. Create illusory walls to hide you from the enemy. Create an illusory bridge over a chasm and convince them to walk over it and fall to their doom. It's a trickery type school. But back in second edition, and the second edition is when it's started, where gnomes, if they chose a wizard, if they wanted to be a specialist wizard, they had to be illusionists, because the trickery aspect was intrinsic to the gnome. And into the third edition, where you had preferred classes for multi-class, it was really complicated. Gnomes, illusionists were gnomes preferred class for multi-classing, so it didn't impose penalties when you multi-classed. The third edition multi-classing rules got really confusing really quickly. Yeah, so let's dive into Illusion. Illusion Savant, we know what that means. Improved minor illusion. When you choose this school, it's the second level. You learn the minor illusion cantrip, which again can be super useful for a lot of different things. If you already know the cantrip, you choose a different cantrip of your choice. And the cantrip doesn't count against the number of cantrips known. And when you cast minor illusion, you can create both sound and an image with this as a single casting of this as a spell. So that can be really useful. Again, cantrips in general are kind of a defining feature of 5th edition, because you can use them always. Unlike previous editions where you had a limited number of uses of them, in 5th edition you can just keep using them, and minor illusion can be really useful. I personally use the smell of effect more than anything else. Am I thinking of that? Oh no, it's just a sound or an image. That's prestidigitation does smell. So sound or an image. The sound can be super useful, because you can use it to kind of confuse guards and stuff like that. And the image can be useful as well. Being able to do both at once can be really fun and useful. So yeah, for a second level of ability compared to some of the others, like Portent or it's just a sculpt spell, that one's kind of a little lesser, but you get cooler stuff as you get higher. Which brings me to malleable illusions, which your level 6 ability. When you cast an illusion spell that has a duration of 1 minute or longer, you can use your action to change the nature of that illusion using the spell's normal parameters for the illusion, provided that you can see the illusion. So basically, malleable illusions effectively makes your illusions more useful. A lot of times the illusions you create have to be static. So if you could create the illusion of a tiger, the tiger's not going to move. It's just going to look like a tiger. However, with malleable illusions, you can change the illusion as you're going. When you mix that with improved minor illusions, you can actually create some really interesting things. You know, have a crystal ball appear and to talk to someone and try and convince them that they've just appeared into the beyond and are now blessed with certain psychic powers that will only work on people that are not a member of your party. You know, the ability to change what's happening on the fly really adds a lot to your illusion abilities, and actually makes the minor illusion cantrip a lot more useful. So that's cool. 10th level, you get illusory self. You can create an illusory duplicate of yourself as an instant, almost instinctual reaction to danger. When a creature makes an attack roll against you, you can use your reaction to interpose the illusory duplicate between the attacker and yourself. The attack automatically misses you, then the illusion dissipates. And once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So, illusion wizards get a free miss. Remember I said Portent can be super useful because there's those situations where the guy needs to miss. Illusory Self is just for those situations. Someone cast Finger of Death at you or Disintegrate or something. Illusory Finger of Death wouldn't work because it's just a save, but I think Disintegrate is a an actual attack roll. I have no idea. Anyway, if they make an attack roll against you and you're into trouble, just make a miss. They're not gonna hurt you. They missed. So again, it's a free miss. Like there's no way to describe that where it's not useful. The only thing that limits it is you can only do it once per short or long rest. And I would kind of prefer to see it, a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier or something. Because only missing one attack in a decent amount of an adventuring day can be a little bit limiting. And finally, illusory reality, which I think is one of the most interesting abilities you get in 5th edition, because by 14th level, you have learned the secret of weaving shadow magic into your illusions to give them a semi-reality. When you cast an illusion spell of 1st level or higher, you can choose one inanimate and a non-magical object that is part of the illusion and make the object real. You can do this on your turn as a bonus action while the spell is ongoing. The object remains real for 1 minute. For example, you can create an illusion of a bridge over a chasm and then make it real long enough for your allies to cross. The object can't deal damage or otherwise directly harm anybody. This is a big deal. Being able to create illusory bridge that turns into a real bridge is super awesome. Or illusory wall that turns into a real wall. Illusory boat that turns into a real wall. Like, there's so many useful the things you can do when you can just create whatever comes to mind and make it real. Now, it does have to be inanimate and non-magical, but there's so much that is inanimate and non-magical that could just be super useful. So yeah. By the time you get to 14th level, illusory wizards are becoming super fun, and it really gives you the ability to create really unique solutions to problems. Because with any other class, you're limited by what you're carrying and what abilities you have. With the illusion wizard, you're really just limited. You're limited by what's you can create an illusion of for a minute. So yeah, love it. The things that's cool. Next up, the School of Necromancy. Necromancy is necromancy. Almost the entirety of necromancy spells do necrotic damage. For the ones that do damage, there's a lot of raise the dead types of stuff. The other thing that necromancy spells include are things like false life. All your resurrection spells are necromancy. So that's something that a lot of people don't quite realize, that as much as when you think of necromancers, you think of the bad guy. yeah, raising the dead things to do your bidding is generally considered bag. But also, the guy that's resurrecting everyone that's died is using necromancy spells. Um, I'm trying to think of other ones that do. Another one that just kind of blew my mind. Astral projection, I would say ninth level spell, is also a necromancy spell for no idea. So necromancy can be kind of good, but in general, if you're going to be in a necromancer, you're going to be a bad dude. Or at least looked on as a bad dude, kind of an ends justifies the means kind of guy. So to dive into it, Necromancy Savant, we know what that does. Second level, you get Grim Harvest. At second level, you gain the ability to reap life energy from creatures you kill with your spells. Again, super nice guy. Once per turn, when you kill one or more creatures with a spell of a first level or higher, you regain hit points equal to twice the spell's level, or 3 times its level if the spell belongs to this school of necromancy. You don't gain this benefit for killing constructs or undeads. Yeah, remember how I mentioned wizards are all about like slinging spells and doing tons of damage? Well, necromancy, necromancers are all about slinging spells, doing tons of damage, and then healing themselves from all the damage they do. In a well-run party, a necromancer is super hard to kill and can last a lot more combats than other wizards, because the cleric or druid or whoever is doing the healing, maybe your bard. I've even seen rangers pull the healer card. They don't have to worry about the necromancer, which is generally the guy that you have to. The wizard is generally the guy you have to heal the most, because they can only take a few hits before they're gone, and because of how powerful they are, you don't want to lose your wizard. Necromancers don't have to worry about that, and they get this from level to 2. So, yeah, it can be massively useful. It does require you to kind of keep track of the enemies and the rest of your party, because if you're letting your necromancer get last hits, they're recovering. If the necromancer is doing a lot of damage, but other people are killing the monsters, the necromancer is getting nothing. So it does add a little bit of the tactics to it, but it's a free heal. Yeah, it's super useful. 6th level, you get what's called Undead the Thralls, which is a totally good thing. No one could misinterpret Undead the Thralls as being anything other than positive. And so the 6th level, you add the Animate the Dead spell to your spell book if it's not there already. When you cast Animate the Dead, you can target one additional corpse or pile of bones, creating another zombie or skeleton as appropriate. Whenever you create an undead using a necromancy spell, it has additional benefits. The creature's hit point maximum is increased by amount equal to your wizard level, and the creature adds your proficiency bonus to its weapon damage. So necromancers, the thralls, are more powerful and do more damage than the normal stuff, which means you can use spells like Animate the Dead and other spells like it a lot more often, because your dudes are going to be a little bit hardier. Now, Animate Dead is a 1-minute casting time, so it's not something you're casting in combat. But there are combat spells for necromancers that do really useful things. So yeah. To the 10th level, inured to undead death. Beginning at the 10th level, you have resistance to necrotic damage, and your hit point maximum can't be reduced. Stopping right there, that's a massive deal. Some of the worst enemies in the game are the worst enemies, but because they can lower your hit point maximum, which means it's that much easier to kill you. And if they lower it in enough, if they can lower your hit point maximum to 0, you die. There's no death saves. There's no nothing. You are just dead. Necromancers, that can't happen to. They're completely immune to that effect, which is super useful. In addition to that, you have spent so much time dealing with undead and the forces that animate them that you have become inured to some of their worst effects. So resistance to necrotic damage is useful because a lot of undead will add necrotic damage onto their attacks. And if you're fighting spellcasters, necrotic damage spells do a lot of damage. So that's good. And then hit point maximum can't be reduced. Super useful, especially for wizards who already have some of the lowest hit points in the game. You really don't need to be losing more hit points. And then at 14th level, you get the just best ability as far as dealing with undead. You really can, just because of how unlimited it is in certain aspects. It's called Command Undead. Starting at 14th level, you can use magic to bring undead under your control, even those created by other wizards. As an action, you can choose one undead that you can see within 60 feet of you. The creature must make a charisma saving throw against your wizard's spell save to DC. If it succeeds, you can't use this feature on it again. If it fails, it becomes friendly to you and obeys your command until you use this feature again. Intelligent undead are harder to control this way. If the target has an intelligence of 8 or higher, it has advantage on the saving throw. And if it fails the saving throw and has an intelligence of 12 or higher, it can repeat the saving throw at the end of every hour until it succeeds or breaks free. So what does this mean? This means any undead enemy you deal with has the possibility of becoming your ally. And that means everyone from lowly zombies, which I really recommend you never use Command Undead on as a zombie, all the way up to things like the vampires, Dracula liches. Now, understand, if they succeed, you can never use the feature on them again. So you really have to time this well. But if they've got a low charisma score, vampires in general have a pretty high one. But as far as Dracula liches, I'm actually going to look it up. They have a 19 charisma. For an adult blue Dracula Lich, they still have a 19 charisma. Whatever. Even if it's going to be hard, remove their legendary resistances and pray for it. Maybe you've got a Divination wizard with you that can that has a 1 just sitting there waiting for you. Whatever it is, this can be massively useful. Even if you're not targeting super high level ones, even something as simple as a white, which is a challenge rating to the 3 undead, does a lot of damage, and again can stack that action economy in your party's favor. So yeah, super useful. And again, there's no limit to the ability other than you can't use it on a creature that is already saved. So without limitations, like it's super useful. And other than the fact that you have to burn an action to do it, there really isn't a downside to trying it often. Because like I said, the only thing that happens if you fail, or if they succeed on their check, is you can't use it on them again. So yeah, why not get give it a shot at the beginning of combat when everyone else is kind of scattering to prepare for the combat. Oh, there's a flesh golem. He's mine. Super nice. Finally, and I know this video is going super long, but I wanted to get through these. We have this School of Transmutation. Transmutation is another one that's kind of overlooked, because most people hear that and they don't really see a ton of use for it. Again, Evocation, super useful, because that does the damage. Necromancy, hey, I get undead things. Conjuration, hey, I can get elementals and other the things like that. But Transmutation, oh look, I can change stone into wood. So a lot of people underestimate and undervalue this. But Transmutation spells can be pretty useful, especially... Disintegrate is a transmutation spell. I knew it was in there somewhere. Disintegrate is massively useful. Remarkably enough, was a psionic ability in earlier editions. Transmutation can be super useful, because basically anything that changes something, like changes the body, changes matter. To give you some examples. Things like mending is really useful. Prestidigitation is another transmutation cantrip. Things like featherfall, jump, expeditious retreat are all transmutation. As you get higher, you get the things like spider climb or blink. Blink, one of my favorites spells. Blink is transmutation. Fly is transmutation. Haste, another massively useful spell, is transmutation. And then you start getting into the really cool things. Things like polymorph is transmutation. Polymorph is one of the... once you get it, you are always using it. Simply because it's a way to take an entire creature out of battle for a lot. If you're ever dealing with flying creatures, transmutation is polymorph is super useful, simply because you can polymorph them into something that can't fly and has low hit points, and that means they go and they take falling damage, and any falling damage that is over what the creature's hit points are that you polymorph them into transfers to them. And so it can be a really effective way to deal with a flying enemy, because they'll take falling damage, which will pop them out of the polymorph. But they'll take the falling damage and be on the floor, so everyone else can attack them. Again, super useful. And then, like I said, there's other things like disintegrate is transmutation. Reverse gravity is another really fun transmutation spell to use, especially if you're in a room with a high ceiling or spiky bits on the ceiling, like stalactites. That can be massively useful. Anyway, getting back to the actual school, let's dive into it. Transmutation savant, we know what that means. Minor alchemy is what you get, the other ability that you could get at level 2, which is starting at the second level. When you select the school, you can temporarily alter the physical properties of one non-magical object, changing it from one substance to another. You perform a special alchemical procedure on one object composed entirely of wood, stone, but not gemstone, iron, copper, or silver, transforming it into a different one of those materials. For each to 10 minutes you spend performing the procedure, you can transform up to 1 cubic foot of material. After 1 hour, or until you lose your concentration, as if you're concentrating on a spell, the material reverts back to its original subject. This is super useful for cheating people out of their money. But what I mean by that is, carve a bunch of wooden coins, transmute them to silver, spend the money because it's actually silver for an hour, and then go away. Now, don't use this on a merchant you plan on ever doing business with again. But if you're in a new town, you're not going to come back. It's for free money. You can do a cubic foot for every 10 minutes you spend doing this. And a cubic foot is a lot of coins. The nice thing is because they don't turn back for an hour, there will be other transactions in there. So technically the person won't really know unless you make a repeat performance that it was you that just cheated them out of their money. The only limiting factor is you can only do silver and not gold. So you're never going to be able to use this to like buy a ship or something. But if you need, so this is something simple like, maybe you need some new weapons because you lost yours, or you got to pick up a healer's kit or something else like that. You might be able to get away with using silver pieces. So yeah, and there's a lot of other things that can be super useful, like transmuting a wood door into an iron door during a siege can be really useful. Alternatively, changing an iron door into a wood door can make, or even just a part of a iron door into wood, can make breaking in to a siege a lot easier. 6th level, you get to Transmuter Stone, which is super useful, and I think the most useful ability of the Transmutation class, specifically because you get a level 6. You don't have to be super high level for it. Starting at 6th level, you can spend 8 hours creating a Transmuter Stone that stores Transmutation magic. You can benefit from the stone yourself, or give it to another creature. A creature gains a benefit of your choice as long as this stone is in the creature's possession. When you create the stone, choose the benefit from the following options. You get Dark Vision, an increased speed of 10 feet while the creature is unencumbered, proficiency in con saves, or resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or the thunder damage, your choice whenever you choose this benefit. Each time you cast a transmutation spell of for 1st level or higher, you can change the effect of your stone if the stone is on your person. And if you create a new stone, the previous one ceases to function. So you can only have one at a time. However, the ability to have resistance whenever you need it is super useful. And you can change that resistance, or have the Dark Vision, or get con saves are super useful when you need them, because generally con saves are for poison and death. So yeah, there's a lot of useful things you can use for Transmuter Stone. And if you need to change something, just cast a 1st level Transmutation spell and to change it. So maybe one of your party doesn't have Dark Vision. So for right now, you got the Dark Vision. However, in the next area, you're going to be actually fighting a fight. Hey, give me my stone back. Let me get resistance to fire damage, since we're fighting fire giants or something. Again, resistance is super useful because it halves the damage. Unlike previous editions where it'd be like resist 5, you reduce 5 damage from any time you get hit. Resistance in 5th edition is just a flat, I have the damage. And for spells and things like that, if you save against a spell that you have resistance to its damage type, you effectively take a quarter the damage, because you take half of the already have the damage. So always is useful. At 10th level, you get what's called just a Shape Changer. At 10th level, you can add Polymorph, the Polymorph spell to your spellbook. If it's not there already, you can cast Polymorph without expending a spell slot. When you do so, you can target only your self and transform into a beast whose challenge rating is 1 or lower. Once you cast Polymorph in this way, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest, though you can still cast it normally using an available spell slot. So again, Polymorph is super, super useful. In one of my campaigns recently, they were fighting a Shadow Dragon, and I had a sorcerer twin spell Polymorph and turn himself and the bard that was about to die into T-Rexes. Because Polymorph can let you choose a beast up to, I think it's challenge rating 4 or 5, depending on the spell you use. So he turned them both into T-Rexes, and they destroyed the Shadow Dragon pretty freaking quick, because T-Rexes do a lot of damage. So Polymorph itself is a super useful spell, not only for the flying and then falling thing I described earlier, but you can use it on your own allies as well. In this particular instance, you effectively get the druid's beast shape once a day, which again sounds a little limiting because you can only do a challenge rating of 1 or lower, but you can do challenge rating 1 or lower beast of anything. So you can create a flying beast and get a flying speed. You can create a swimming beast and get a swimming speed and the ability to breathe underwater. Like, if you think about it for combat, that's not what this is designed for. If you think about it for utility, this turns you into a very, very versatile wizard. Because you already have other things you can do with the spells. This is just free to transformations. And at 14th level, you get Master Transmuta. Which is you can use your action to assume the reserve of transmutation magic stored within your transmuter's stone in a single burst. When you do so, choose one of the following effects. Your transmuter's stone is destroyed and can't be remade until you finish a long rest. So these effects are a one and done per day, and they take up your transmuter stone, which you've already talked about, is really useful. However, the things you can do with it kind of make up for that. Major transformation. You can transmute one and a non-magical object, no larger than a 5-foot cube, into another non-magical object of similar size and mass and of equal or lesser value. You must spend 10 minutes handling the object to transform it. This one a little... Again, it's 100% based on your creativity, kind of like the illusion wizard. This can allow you to create some very interesting solutions to puzzles and problems that you can't do with any other class. So for that reason alone, it's massively useful, especially for people that are really, really creative. As far as combat use for that, it is not happening. You might be able to come up with something, but it takes 10 minutes to be able to transform it. It's probably not something that's ever going to be useful in combat. Panacea. You remove all curses, diseases, and poisons affecting a creature that you touch with a transmuter stone. The creature also regains all its hit points. That is a major clutch heal. Let's say your cleric is super low and has been failing saves and stuff because he's poisoned or maybe he's cursed or has a disease. You whip out the stone Panaceum, they instantly go to full health, are cured of everything, and then can heal the entire party. Same can be true, like if your tank is about to die, just Panaceum and whoop, he's back and ready. This can be incredibly effective on barbarians because they literally are just hit points as sponges when it comes to combat. So yeah, crazy useful. The next one, Restore Life. You cast the Raise Dead spell on a creature you touch with the Transmuter Stone without expending a spell slot or needing to have this spell in your spell book. Now, one thing about that is it doesn't say you get to cast it without material components. You still need a diamond worth at least 500 gold, which this is a spell consumes. But having a raised dead in your back pocket is crazy useful. Especially if it's like the cleric that dies. You definitely want to have the raised dead as a spell there to get them back, so then they can preferably bring back anyone else that would need to be brought back. So again, this is super useful. And this last one is just interesting, to be blunt. It's called Restore Youth. You touch the transmuter stone to a willing creature, and that creature's apparent age is reduced by 3d to 10 years to a minimum of 13 years. This effect doesn't extend the creature's lifespan. From from a role-playing perspective, and from a DM perspective, having a character that has used multiple transmuter stones on themselves over the year to appear much younger than they actually are is really interesting, and can create a really interesting character. Finding a 13-year-old that just happens to be a level 20 wizard who's lived for 80 years can be a really interesting kind of a dynamic to play. Or if any of your party gets hit by an aging spell, this could be a useful way to get rid of that. Beyond that, though, like, I don't know. Like I said, I think from a role-playing perspective, it's really interesting. But I don't know. I think the rest of the things in there are much more useful than the Restore Youth. Anyway, that's the wizard, guys. That's the last PHB subclass for the wizard, and with that, we have every single class and subclass in the PHB covered in the D&D Deep Dive. This has been years in the making. I'm super proud of it. There's still tons more. They just released an Unearthed Arcana with new feats that I'm going to do a D&D Deep Dive on eventually, because we just covered feats previously, and these new ones I think are really interesting, especially if you're thinking of homebrewing your own feats, because what they did to do with these feats, it's just a really good masterclass on what to do and what not to do. Because there's both good feats and bad feats in it. So I'm going to do that one eventually. However, I still want to know what you guys want to see me cover. So in the comments below, let me know. Do you want to see me cover either some of the cleric or wizard or any of the other classes that I haven't covered? There's Xanathars or there's Sword Coast Adventurers subclasses. Let me know in the comments below. Or do you guys want me to start branching more into homebrew content? Things that you can find on D&D Beyond or on the DM's Guild or anywhere else. In general, I'm probably not going to do the D&D Wiki because most of the stuff on there is trash. It's just really poorly designed, and I would literally just spend the entire time ripping it apart. However, if that's what you guys want to see, let me know in the comments down below. There's so much more stuff we could cover. This just gives me a really nice basis so that anything new that comes out, I can now cover on the D&D Deep Dive. I also, there's other aspects of the game that we haven't covered. Things like backgrounds. And I still need to do things on the spells, which would be an entire series of episodes, because there's just so many. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, what do you want us to see next from the D&D Deep Dive. Also, as always, please like the video if you enjoyed it and you made it for this 1.5 hour long video. Sorry it's so long, but I wanted to get through this. Hit a like, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this stuff. And that is all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right. Bye-bye.